about okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Green Fingers Wildlife Sanctuary, and today we'll be talking about another species which many people find get a bit skittish about, and we're talking about snakes. Across the world, snakes can be divided into two major classes. So we have the venomous, where uh, okay, I believe we are back on. Now, the non-venomous snakes can, or the non-venomous snakes can also be divided into we have other snakes, then we have the pythons, which are actually constrictors. Now, today we'll be talking about a non-venomous that is also about no other pythons. Python is found. There are two major pythons that can be found in Nigeria, and I'm talking about the African rock python, and I'm talking about the Russian or the ball python. Now, the African rock python can be found all across Africa, and they are one of the biggest snakes we have in the world. While the ball pythons are quite smaller, and they also can be found only in the around the middle parts of Africa. So I'm talking about from the western sub-Saharan Africa all the way down to the Central Africa. So I'm talking about countries like Senegal, Cameroon. You can find the royal python, and this is what the royal python or the ball python actually looks like. It's quite a smaller species of pythons. It's actually one of the smallest species of the pythons we have out there, and that's what he actually looks like. I'm going to get to see a close view of what he looks like. They have a small head compared to their counterparts, which are basically the rock pythons. These guys have smaller heads compared to them. Now, these guys also don't grow as big or as long as the rock pythons. Rock pythons can reach lengths of over 20 feet, while the while these guys, the ball pythons, are just you can just have the biggest recorded is still known to be about 12 feet. So that's about 72 inches. So they are found in Africa, native to Africa, and no other place. Any other place they are found is either because they've been introduced into those areas, but they are actually native only to Africa. So behavior. So why are they actually called? So when you hear the name ball python, why are they actually called ball pythons? Now they actually call ball python because they have a particular behavior of folding themselves or wrapping themselves around and tucking their heads into their body in form of a ball, and that's why they have that characteristic name ball python. But normally they would do that when they are threatened or when they are shy or when they need to avoid when they want to avoid danger. So they protect their head by hiding it, and they form that characteristic ball structure, and that's why they're called ball pythons. But this particular ball python isn't scared because once they become used to the people that handle them, or when they become used to people, especially, they begin to lose that nature of being afraid. Now, this feature of it being able to hide its head in the case of any prey has is basically what has caused them to become so huge and popular in the international pet trade. And because of their nature, because they're quite docile, they are not as aggressive as their counterparts, which are the rock pythons. The rock pythons are aggressive and would strike and fight at the slightest frustration. But these guys would are so docile, so they're easily picked up, and that's what has made them one of the most popular snakes in the global pet trade. And actually, they are actually one of the snakes to be known to. They're the most, they're one of the they're actually one of the top snakes to be used as pets all across the world because of that nature of being docile and being able to hide, and hiding their heads in the case of danger. Now in Nigeria, these ball pythons are found around the in the central part of Nigeria along the forest because they actually prefer savanna, open forest, and areas where shrub grow. That's where they are basically found here in Nigeria, and they are actually quite. So there are quite a few things we're going to learn about them, especially when it concerns Nigeria, because there are some quite interesting facts. But let's talk about their status. Now, according to IUCN, they are actually regarded as near threatened. So they've moved away from the part of being least concern, and now they are, because of their their use in the international pet trade, and because of the other factors which I'll be talking about briefly, they are now actually near threatened. So some of these factors that contribute to this loss or reduction in their numbers include things like loss of habitat. Now, especially here in Nigeria, due to the loss of forests, loss of even grasslands, conversion of the urbanization of many parts of the country, you will find that these snakes now have become, um, their numbers are actually rapidly declining because they are actually losing their habitat. And the thing about about places like here in Nigeria, or because of their reputation as snakes, once sighted, they are basically actually killed on site because people are actually very much afraid of anything that slithers on its belly. Now, one of the things we've talked about right now is habitat. Now, another thing which I have actually touched on earlier is the fact that they are basically used in the international pet trade. So they are being poached for their because they can be sold to different parts of the world and to be used as pets because of their nature. So you'll find people harvesting hunting the females, hunting their eggs, so that they can actually use them and sell them off in the international market, um, for as pets. Another way we have basically found out here in Nigeria, and that's one of the things we are currently fighting against, is that people actually kill them for meat. So they are being used as bushmeat, and they are also being used for traditional purposes. Now, these are some of the things that we've seen that these snakes have been exposed to, and that is what is also causing their rapid declines here in Nigeria. So we've talked about poaching for exotic trade. They are hunted for their skin, also hunted for their skin because their skin is basically used in leather. So one of the ways you can help will be to boycott any natural snake skin product, and that will help conserve these species. And they are also using traditional medicine and their habitat loss. Those are the things that have contributed to the decline in their numbers. And I've said in captivity, they are the most popular pet snakes we have in the world. Now, one thing I want us to also look at is that I want us to look at the patterns that we have here, um, to understand, so for people to be able to identify. Now, how are you able to identify when you see a ball python compared to a rock python? Now, if you look at this closely, you see that there's a regular pattern that goes across these marks. They go across. Now, that's a regular pattern that you find all across ball pythons. Now, you can see that key-like pattern, but that pattern is completely different in a rock python. A rock python has no, the patterns are not regular. They are scattered, and that's one of the ways we can actually identify the difference between a rock python and difference between a rock python and a ball python. Some ball pythons might be aggressive, meaning a way to defend themselves, especially the ones that are much bigger. But most ball pythons will basically hide their heads just to prevent um, to be picked up by any predator or anyone that wants to harm the animal. So it's important that we understand that these species are very effective. So let me talk about a few things, how they actually help in the ecosystem. Now, they help in controlling most of their diets. Basically, we have small mammals like rats, small birds, and they help to control population of rodents. Now, because of that, and that is quite important, especially in a country like us, like here in Africa, they help in rodent control. Rodents are also known to be one of the major carriers of a lot of zoonotic diseases like we have here in Africa, like Lassa fever. Now, if the population of snakes are reduced, you should expect that there should be a surge or a surge in the rodent population. And think about what that can do to humanity, destruction of even storage, food storage, and think about what rodents will do when their natural predator, the python, is actually out taken out of existence. Now, the numbers of ball pythons we have now in Nigeria is still declining, and there's so much we can still do. We must do to be able to conserve them. But here is something very interesting that we must know. Here in Nigeria, there's a part of Nigeria, it's in the southern part of Nigeria, among the Igbos. Now, the rock pythons are worshipped or are highly respected there. Now, whether it's by Christians or non-Christians, Igbos, when they see a rock python in their path, they just pick it up because they're able to pick it up and put it back in a proper place, in a nice place. They do not kill them because they are highly respected, because they feel that because of the way they move, they are closer to the earth, and that gives them protection in those parts of the country. Now, it's also known that if a rock python is being killed, if a ball python is being killed in those areas, what happens is that a burial ceremony, a small burial ceremony is conducted, and the snake is actually placed in a coffin, just like we would have for humans. That is one of the things which protects this kind of species, and those are the kind of cultures that are still relevant in protecting wildlife in Nigeria today. And that in itself could be one of the ways that we could still see the survival of a species like this. Thank you very much. That's all we have for you today, and we hope you're able to join us next time on on this channel. Now, it's important for you to understand that we are not able to do what we are doing or what we do without your support. So you can click on the link below to donate to support our work, and we'll definitely see you next time. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful week. And say goodbye from my friend here. Want to say goodbye? Come on, tell them goodbye. Okay. Okay, so he said his goodbye. See y'all later. Thank you. Bye.